work that I've been working on. The Scrollgate Chronicles by G.J. Mallet. Chapter 14, The Walk with Enoch. Straight street at dusk. Incense smoke drifted under the colonnades of Straight Street, Damascus's wide Roman road. Merchants folded their cloth. Children chased goats between pillars, and priests called evening prayers from the synagogue steps. Paul walked slowly along the stones, every glance a blade. "That's Saul," a spice seller muttered, loud enough to sting. Paul stopped, met his eyes. "That man was buried in water. I am Paul in Yeshua." A beggar shook his tin cup. "If you are Paul now, buy bread for the poor." Ooh, Paul pressed coins into his palm. Not Saul's bread, but Paul's mercy. A priest at the synagogue gate scoffed. "A name does not wash blood." And Paul answered, "No, but Yeshua's blood washed mine." A woman missed Saul's shadow, walks faster than Paul ever will. Paul said softly, "Then I will walk until even shadows see the light." From behind him came a quiet voice. "Well said." Paul turned. Enoch stood in the colonnade, linen trailing like dawn eyes, glimmering with patience. "Then walk, Paul. Walk until heaven testifies, even if men stay blind." Paul frowned. "Walk where?" "Through the gate." The seam opened near the synagogue doors. Hebrews letters curling in the smoke. "Spirit, truth, walk." The pigeon fluttered after them as Paul followed Enoch inside the endless road. Stone gave way to a path of light that stretched across the emptiness. Each step left footprints glowing behind them. Enoch gestured. "Every man leaves a mark. Yours will be called a footprint of the walk." Paul muttered, "Is this a desert?" "No," Enoch said. "It is the road that every man walks, though most will never see it." They walked in silence, feet echoing. Paul's chest burned. "How long must I walk this road?" Enoch smiled faintly. 300 years was my first measure. How long can you endure?" Paul stumbled. 300 years? I can hardly last 3 steps without stumbling." "Then stumble, rise, and keep walking." Paul scowled. "You mock me." Enoch's eyes glimmered. "No, I show you. Zeal is not endurance. You want to win by sprinting, but God asks you to walk." Paul shook his head. "Then why does zeal burn hotter?" "Because zeal wants the finish." Enoch said, "Walking wants the presence, and if presence feels absence, then take the next step anyway." They came to a ridge where the air shimmered. Paul's breath curled into glowing words. "Love never fails." Enoch nodded. "This is the word in the breath. Let it ride on you." Paul frowned. "Breath is weak. It vanishes." Enoch pointed at the letters fading into light. "So does anger, yet it scars. Breath writes what endures." Paul whispered, "Love never fails." The words dissolved into his lungs, leaving a strange sweetness in his chest. Paul groaned, sweat streaking his brow. "And what if I fail again? If pride rises, if fear chokes me?" Enoch slowed. "Then pride walks behind you, not ahead. Fear hounds, but it cannot lead. Only your step with him matters." Paul whispered, "Rome is a mountain. I am too small." Enoch laid a hand on his shoulder. Then you are sized right for God's hand. The confrontation at the synagogue. The seam sealed. And Paul stumbled back on the straight street at the base of the great synagogue. The crowd, to the crowd no time had passed, yet his tunic clung with sweat. His chest heaved like he had carried stones uphill. A boy tugged his mother's sleeve, the man breathless like he carried mountains. And the beggar lifted his coin, better sweat for mercy than dry hands for murder. A vendor barked, sweat proves nothing but heat. A temple guard muttered, a man who walks like that is dangerous. The pigeon flapped onto a spice basket. Feathers puffed. It let out a croaky coo, and the boy laughed. Even the pigeon is out of breath. The vendor wagged a finger. If it follows him, we'll charge it for figs. Nervous chuckles rippled through the colonnade. Then Eleazar ben Shammai, Pharisee elder of Damascus, thrust a scroll aloft from the synagogue steps. This is Saul, sent with letters from the high priest to bind the blasphemers of the way. Tell us, Saul, where are your chains? A widow cried out, trembling, you dragged my brother from this very street, and he never returned. Gasp spread. Roman soldiers and Levite guards leaned in. Some had marched beside Saul. One whispered, he was fire in our ranks. Another, I sharpened his blade. As Paul lifted his hands, another voice slithered through the square, layered beneath Eleazar's. Chains cannot be unmade, Paul. You are Saul still. Iron does not drown in water. Blood remembers. The people shuddered. Who spoke? A shadow. A shadow moved. Did you hear it? It was Leviathan coiling through the Pharisees' accusations, twisting Paul's confession into shame. Paul trembled, then shouted, yes, I was Saul the hunter, the murderer, but Saul is buried in the blood of Yeshua, breaks iron as clay. Levithian, you will not coil around me ever again. He dropped to his knees on the stones. Before God and before you all, I repent. I am Paul now, servant, not hunter, brother, not enemy. The widow's voice rang clear. If God forgives him, who am I to curse him? The crowd murmured the line back and forth until it became a plain speech echo, the civic echo, the heavenly courts were convened. At that very moment in the court of heaven, Lucifer stood before the throne, surrounded by wheels of wheels of fire and rivers of crystal. Lucifer, he is Saul, blood-marked. His name cannot be washed away. His past tongues shout louder than his tongue, the way itself stained. Yahweh, I have renamed him. Paul is mine. What I name no throne can erase. Angels thundered together. The seal of renaming is sure. Straight Street declares. Paul rose steadier than before, eyes blazing with conviction. I was Saul, but Saul is no more. Paul stands before you, and I will preach that every name I once tried to silence. Whoo! A child shouted, if he was Saul, he is not Saul now. And the widow echoed, Paul lives in Yeshua. The synagogue steps erupted, Pharisees outraged, civilians torn, soldiers shaken. Word fled down Straight Street faster than sandals could carry. The hunter has become one of the way. The road he walked was unseen, yet its steps would one day be read in every city. Seal. The hunter's chains cracked on Straight Street, and Paul walked as one renamed. Mallet Unchained, baby. Mallet Unchained, yeah. Woo!